in addition to parts, services, and a body shop. Seekins Ford Lincoln is also top 50 in Power Stroke diesel volume and growth. After that streak of merchants, here's someone putting those machines to good use. Unit Company, ranked number 44, earned $64.8 million in revenue. Unit recently completed work at the Clear Long-Range Discrimination Radar Project. Unit Company is proud that its story includes supporting our nation's defense.
At number 43 is another giant in Alaska's construction industry, Roger Hickel Contracting, with gross revenue of $69 million. Nearing 30 years of providing construction services in Alaska, the company remains 100% Alaskan-owned and saw 25% growth in revenue from 2020. As we continue our adventure, we encounter our first financial services organization. Number 42 on this year's countdown is Credit Union One, reporting $70.7 million. This is the first year the credit union has topped $70 million, and it also has a new president and CEO. Mark Burgess filled an interim role for 6 months before he was officially named president and CEO in August. He joined Credit Union One in 2018 as its chief technology officer.
At number 41, we have a Time Dealer of the Year nominee, Jeans Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, reporting $71.4 million in revenue, a jump of 21% over the year previous. Jeans Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram is approaching 80 years of providing sales of Chrysler, Dodge, and Jeep automobiles, parts, and services. One place to gas up for adventure in your Jeep might be Vitus Energy. The homegrown fuel distributor has had a burst of expansion, acquiring and opening 4 retail gas locations, 1 each in Fairbanks and Healy, and 2 in Anchorage. President and CEO Mark Smith told Alaska Business earlier this year, Vitus has been growing since inception, but is just getting more visible with opening the Anchorage locations. Founded in 2009, Vitus is the youngest top 49er, but in those 13 years, the company has made huge strides in fuel and freight sales throughout the state. Ranked at number 40, Vitus earned $71.5 million in 2021.
We're officially in the 30s, and our number 39 slot is held by Ghana Ayu, the first of many ANCSA corporations in the top 49ers. Ghana Ayu represents shareholders in Galena, Koyukuk, Nulato, and Caltag, and reports revenues of $74 million. Despite the challenges of the pandemic, the company reports that 2021 was the 3rd most profitable year in its history. Everett Air reports 2021 as the year of updating strategy and finalizing projects that were impacted by COVID and the associated business environment. Whatever the challenges the company had, it still increased revenues to $75 million last year, a 5% increase that landed it at number 38. Led by CEO and owner Robert Everts, the company states, "It was a year to appreciate and support the hard work and dedication of an amazing group of employees while at the same time pursuing ambitious goals." Construction company HT Contractors, number 37, also had an ambitious year, completing construction of 18 miles of water line from North Pole to Moose Creek at Eielson, in addition to the Wendell Avenue Bridge, the Little Goldstream Bridge, the Chocksana Bridge, and resurfacing of the Richardson Highway from mile 82 to 97. All projects that added up to $77.2 million in revenue. With such a portfolio of work, it's no wonder that Ukpiagvik Inupiaq Corporation found it worthwhile to acquire a majority interest in HT Contractors in May.
At number 36 is Qikiqtaguk Inupiaq Corporation, which joined the ranks of the top 49ers for the first time last year. Led by CEO Thomas Kennedy, the ANCSA Corporation reports revenue of $79 million. It's continuing to grow in the scientific services industry, provided primarily to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration and the National Institutes of Health. It also started a SABRE IDIQ contract with Joint Base Langley Eustis in Virginia. Colville is next in the ranks at number 35. Its subsidiary, Colville Aviation Services, acquired the North Slope assets of Northern Oilfield Solutions in July, which is allowing the company to expand its fuel storage and distribution capabilities. In addition to those, Colville also provides oil and gas industry support, such as solid waste utility, aviation support, logistics, and camp operations. Colville earned 2021 revenues of $79.4 million.
Cruising in at number 34 this year, Cruise Construction, solid foundation has once again secured the company a spot on the list. More than construction services, Cruise also provides heavy haul, marine transportation, camp and logistics services, engineering, and consulting to earn revenue, which totaled $89.6 million. According to the company, it had a diverse year, moving more than 5.5 million tons of material, mobilizing a 3.2 million pound drill rig, and constructing hundreds of miles of ice road and snow trail. Reporting $90 million in revenue, Anchorage Chrysler Dodge Center drives into the ranks to park at number 33. The company had a 7% increase in revenue from 2020 to 2021, likely due to keeping its customers happy. Anchorage Chrysler Dodge Center received the Consumer Satisfaction Award in 2021 and 2022 from Dealer Rater, which provides more than 34 million consumers with reviews on auto dealerships.
Usabelli Coal Mine, based out of Healy, clocked in at number 32 and reached a historic milestone in September of 2021 when the state of Alaska approved Phase 3 bond release for 367 acres of mine lands fully restored within the Poker Flats mining area. According to Usabelli, it's only the second area in Alaska to be approved for Phase 3 bond release, a demonstration of Usabelli's long and ongoing commitment to reclaiming and rehabilitating the areas it mines. Alaska's only operational coal mine reports revenues of $94 million. Our first company to blast past $100 million in revenue, Construction Machinery Industrial, clamps down in at number 31 and has $115 million in revenue. With its all-Alaskan workforce, a feat many on this list share, the distributor of construction, mining, and logging equipment continue to focus on customer support, despite lead times and logistical issues, which are ongoing challenges in the supply chain. Our number 30 top 49er, the Kuskokwim Corporation, landed the biggest jump in the ranks this year, climbing, and without a rope or whip, all the way up to from number 40 last year. It managed the move with an incredible 68% growth in revenue, reporting revenues of $122.8 million compared to $73 million in 2020. According to the Anksa Village Corporation, it is focusing on improving the lives of its shareholders beyond dividends, and profits from the Lower 48 are being used to find energy, cost of living, and housing solutions in rural Alaska.
Davis Constructors and Engineers also had an impressive jump in revenue, reporting a 42% increase from $94 million in 2020 to $113.6 million. According to the company, over its history, it has acquired or it has completed more than $2.6 billion worth of Alaska projects, which represents more than 7.8 million square feet of construction. That is more than 3 times the size of the Louvre in Paris. In addition to ranking number 29 in the top 49ers, Davis Constructors and Engineers is also in the corporate 100, companies ranked by the number of Alaska employees, and has won Best of Alaska Business Awards for 2 years in a row. So we're not the only ones who thinks they're awesome. Our readers do too. Number 28 on the list is North Rim Bank, an Alaska financial fixture. While publicly traded, the bank has a laser focus on Alaska and Alaskans. It launched in 1990 with a foundational value of customer-first service, according to Chairman and CEO Joe Shearhorn, one of the 2 panelists who have graciously agreed to participate in our executive Q&A immediately following this presentation. North Rim Bank, the number 1 PPP loan originator in the state, reports $136.9 million gross revenue.
Next in the ranks at number 27 with $145.6 million in revenue is Sitnasak Native Corporation, which in June acquired Bennettsville Printing, the main supplier of fabric for SNC Technical Services, a Sitnasak subsidiary. Bennettsville Printing has been operating for more than 20 years and is a key textile supplier authorized by the Department of Defense to print camouflage fabrics for the armed forces. SNC Technical Services' plan is to continue serving Bennettsville Printing industrial base while improving services and expanding into new products. Cape Fox Corporation, also an Anksa Village Corporation, saw a 19% increase in revenue from 2020, reporting $147.2 million, securing a spot at number 26. Cape Fox Corporation has 2 major lines of business, tourism in Alaska and government contracting. Recent activities have expanded the Alaska tourism line, including a new transportation company, pizzeria, renovated tram at Cape Fox Lodge, and other local new properties.
Our first energy utility this year is Matanuska Electric Association, ranked at number 25. The utility provides services to more than 54,000 members with little more than 200 local employees. MEA saw modest growth, reporting $157.6 million in revenue, but Alaska's oldest electric cooperative has made great strides in sustainability, reducing its carbon emission by 27% over the last 10 years. It currently produces 16% of its power through renewable energy sources. First National Bank, ranked at number 24, secured its spot with $171 million in gross revenue. This year, the oldest top 49er celebrated 100 years of operation, notably with fireworks in Midtown Anchorage on January 30th. The bank's roots go all the way back to the early days in 1922 as First National Bank of Anchorage. 2022 also marks the 7th year running that FNBA has been voted Best Place to Work in our annual Best of Alaska Business Awards.
Chogi Unlimited saw steady revenues from 2020 to 2021, reporting $182.3 million to rank at number 23. Our friends in Dillingham have created a new subsidiary called Wood River Federal, which provides IT, logistics support, facilities management, cabling network infrastructure, and specialty military training to the federal government. The Wood River family comprises 3 companies: Wood River Services, UTEC, and iTech, all operating out of San Antonio, Texas. Out in the Pribilofs, Tandusix Corporation, or TDX, saw increased revenue of 13% from $177 million in 2020 to a nice round $200 million in 2021. The Anxa Village Corporation operates in 25 states and 10 countries, serving the technology, government contracting, hospitality, and seafood industries.
In 2021, the Aleut Corporation welcomed new president and CEO Skoe Bergen, an original Aleut Corporation shareholder. Prior to joining the Aleut Corporation, Bergen was a senior director at GCI. He's also worked at Arctic Slope Regional Corporation and Aleut Northwest Services. The Aleut Corporation is number 21 this year, reporting revenue of $231.9 million. And with Ohlunick Corporation, we're at the top 20. The Anxa Village Corporation for Wainwright held its number 20 spot from last year with a 7% increase in revenue, reporting $258.7 million in 2021. Ohlunick says that during the pandemic, it committed to preserving its workforce, and its employees in turn showed resilience and innovation that helped the company pursue its goals. Bringing in contracts will keep it busy for years to come.
At number 19, we find Doyon Limited, reporting revenues of $283 million. Doyon has formed a joint venture with Huna Totem Corporation called Nadana. I think I got that right. Combining tourism experience from the interior and southeast. One of their projects is a partnership with Klawock Henya Corporation to build a passenger dock in Klawock, which already has a cruise ship scheduled to visit next May. Coming in at number 18, Tyonek Native Corporation has a new point man. In May, Stephen Peskoski became the corporation's new CEO. He has more than 35 years of experience in manufacturing and distribution businesses supporting aerospace, transportation, energy, defense, industrial, and mechanical markets. He joins the company at a really exciting time. Tyonek has seen significant growth over the past 5 years, which the company attributes to its valued employees, 60% of whom are military veterans. The Native Corporation saw 14% growth from last year, reporting $289.7 million. There are only 4 non-Anxa Corporation companies in the top 40. The first is Three Bears, Alaska, ranked at number 17. In addition to grocery and general merchandise, the company also offers sporting goods, pharmacy, fuel, and beer, wine, and spirits throughout its now 18 stores in Alaska. In addition to expanding locations, Three Bears also increased its revenue by 16%, reporting $323.4 million. Interestingly, this figure is nearly the amount reported by another prominent grocer, our first ever top 49er, Kargatstein Foods Company, when they reported $355 million in gross revenue in 1985.
The Copper River Valley struck gold with Ahtna, reporting revenues of $324 million to rank at number 16. Ahtna's service lines include construction, engineering, environmental, facilities management, military training, resource development, and oil and gas pipeline services, amongst others. In August, one of the corporation's subsidiaries was recognized as one of Engineering News Record Magazine's 2022 top environmental firms, coincidentally also ranked number 16. Chugach Electric Association is on a quest to find a successor for longtime CEO Lee Thiebert, who retired at the end of April. For now, the acting CEO of the state's largest electric utility is Arthur Miller, a 32-year veteran of the co-op, most recently serving as its Executive Vice President of Regulatory and External Affairs. During Thiebert's last year as CEO, Chugach Electric increased revenues by 49%, reporting $354 million, in large part due to 2021 being the first full year since the acquisition of Municipal Light and Power. That's good enough to rise from number 21 on the list last year to number 15.
Koniag is continuing its trend of year-over-year growth. For 2021, the ANCSA Regional Corporation reported $424.1 million in revenue, 13% growth from the year before. According to Koniag, its government contracting line leads growth within the company, with 3 years of consistent contract performance, all of which allowed it to achieve the number 14 spot in the ranks. After Koniag comes another ANCSA Regional Corporation, Bering Straits Native Corporation, our ice cream sponsor. Yay, ice cream! Reporting $468.2 million, a 3% increase over the previous year. The corporation has seen significant growth in other ways, as it acquired Central Environmental Incorporated, as well as sister companies Central Recycling Services, CI Contractors, Environmental Management, and Concrete Coring Services in October 2021. Bering Straits Native Corporation continues to grow under the guidance and president of CEO Gail Schubert and ranks at number 13 this year.
At number 12, we welcome back to the top 49ers, Alaska USA Federal Credit Union, which was last listed amongst the 49ers in 2013. While it remains headquartered here, since it is member-owned, its expansions outside of the state disqualified it for a period of time from being a top 49er because of our prior 51% minimum Alaskan-owned requirement. With our revised criteria, we're excited to welcome back Alaska USA. In 2013, the credit union reported revenue of $338 million, and for 2021, it reported $486.1 million. With its recent merger with Global Credit Union, Alaska USA is now the 16th largest credit union in the United States. Expect to see another jump in revenue next year. While many top 49ers have shown growth over last year, Gold Belt by far has seen the most, increasing revenue by an amazing 83%. Last year's revenue almost doubled to $497 million, good enough for a jump of 7 spots from number 18 to number 11. As the company puts it, Gold Belt continues to accomplish record-breaking profitability through our pursuit of creative business solutions. You can learn a little bit more about Gold Belt's president and CEO, Miku Pierre, in our October magazine's Off the Cuff.
And here we are at number 10. Ukpiagvik Inupiat Corporation kept its spot by increasing its revenue by 10%, reporting $582.6 million for 2021. The company states, UIC set another record for revenues and income from operations, and says it was able to distribute its largest dividend payment of $30 per share. The acquisition of a majority share in HC Contractors sets it up for another record year next year, so keep an eye out. UIC also has a new president and CEO, welcoming Dr. Pearl Brower to the role in April. There's another one of those QR codes if you're following along. Feel free to scan it. Fun stuff there. Cook Inlet Region Incorporated moved up 2 spots to number 9 this year and saw almost 30% growth in revenue, increasing from $478 million in 2020 to $611.8 million in 2021. In addition to using its own funds to benefit its communities, CIRI and its partners distributed approximately $112 million of CARES Act funds to projects and programs focused on Alaska Native healthcare, child and elder needs, homelessness and housing instability, and workforce reentry, among others. President and CEO Sophie Minnick also is generously participating in our executive Q&A following this presentation.
Afognak Native Corporation also did its part in distributing more than $11 million of CARES Act relief funds to households, small businesses, community organizations, and hunting and subsistence programs to fund food security and pandemic assistance. The corporation moved up one spot on the list and maintained gross revenue of $658 million. Reporting $722.6 million in revenue, number 7 is Chalista Corporation, led by President and CEO Andrew Guy, who graciously appeared on our September cover. In 2021, Chalista passed a historic milestone with more than $100 million in lifetime distributions to its shareholders. $100 million. The corporation has more than 35,000 shareholders, the most of any ANCSA corporation, if you're keeping track. The company also distributed $5.9 million in scholarships to date.
Chugach Alaska Corporation rocked our 2022 Best of Alaska Business Awards, debuting as a Best Place to Work, Best COVID Response, and Best Corporate Citizen. One respondent to the Best of Alaska Business Awards survey said, "I don't know of any business going to the length that Chugach does to support the local community, Alaska Natives, and their culture." Landing at number 6, Chugach Alaska reported 2021 revenues of $783 million. Now we're on to the top 5, and into the billion-dollar league. And right here at number 5 is Linden. Its parent company was established in Alaska in 1982. The Linden family of companies provides air, land, and sea transportation and logistics solutions, and more than 1/3 of its workforce is located in the state to facilitate those services. All of the top 5 49ers saw growth in revenue this year, including Linden, increasing by 13% to $1.1 billion in 2021. Subsidiary Alaska West Express received the 2021 Safe Truck Fleet of the Year award, and subsidiary Bering Marine received the Transportation Safety Award from the American Red Cross.
Chenega Corporation saw 16% growth in 2021 revenue, increasing from $950 million to $1.1 billion last year. The company has more than 7,000 employees worldwide, providing services to defense, intelligence, and civilian customers. To support its ongoing growth, Chenega continues to maximize its business opportunities to support shareholders and work on infrastructure projects in the village. Holding steady at number 3 is Nana Regional Corporation, reporting $1.8 billion in revenue, a 15% jump from its $1.5 billion reported for 2020. A year ago, Nana selected its new president and CEO, John Lincoln, who before his appointment had a combined 18 years of history at Nana and the Manolac Association, which are the two largest employers of shareholders in the Nana region. Lincoln is a graduate of Stanford University, served in the State House of Representatives, and was named a top 40 under 40.
Featuring again as number 2 is Bristol Bay Native Corporation. Under the leadership and president, CEO Jason Matrokin, of the top 5, BB&C saw the largest growth in revenue, nearly 30% over 1 year. It reported 2020 revenues of $1.6 billion, and that number climbed to $2.2 billion in 2021. The company continues to promote fish from Bristol Bay to the world, and its subsidiary, Bristol Wild Seafood, was named a Microsoft product with a purpose. The tech giant celebrated the announcement by featuring Bristol Wild Seafood sockeye salmon and Alaska cod at dining locations on its campus and holding a seafood sustainability panel and Alaska salmon culinary demonstration. And here we are at number 1, the top of the mountain, the final boss, the jewel in the crown. We are at the end of our 49er adventure. Woohoo! That's okay. That was the appropriate response at that point. So here we are at the end of our 49er adventure, and it's no surprise we find the mighty Arctic Slope Regional Corporation, one of only 4 companies to appear on every top 49er since 1985, and number 1 every year since 1995. If you thought ASRC couldn't climb any higher, it reported $3.8 billion, I beg your pardon. $38 billion, we'll save that for a few more years. It reported $3.8 billion in revenue for 2021, 13% growth from last year. According to ASRC, in 2021, it achieved record revenues as well as its second highest adjusted EBITDA in the corporation's history. According to the company, it further strengthened its stable financial foundation built by its past and present leadership. Simple as that.
Congratulations to ASRC and congratulations to all of the 2022 Top 49ers. Your efforts year after year keep the Alaska economic engine running by maintaining headquarters in the state, your operations outside, draw money back, creating additional jobs, and building our urban and rural communities. Your choices don't just guide your own adventure, they help countless others statewide to find their path to success. We hope you enjoyed today's presentation. Next up, we have the executive Q&A, which will be followed by the Ice Cream Networking Social, where you can visit our sponsor tables or have your photo taken at the photo booth and photo station where you can pick up your award plaque. Be sure to also pick up a swag bag, which includes the Top 49ers magazine featuring a special edition cover designed by local artist Lucas Elliott. Make sure to have your passports so you can have a chance to win those Alaska Airlines tickets. Now it's time to test the pop quiz skills of our two Top 49ers elite. Please turn your attention to our executive Q&A panel and welcome to the stage Tasha Anderson, Sophie Minnick, and Joe Shearhorn.
Okay. Adventure, Joe.
You bet.
So the first thing you'll notice is we have the most comfortable chairs in the room. So next year, if I invite Juby on the panel, I suggest you take that opportunity. Thank you so much, Joe and Sophie, for being here today. We are so excited to hear some of your thoughts. And because what you have to say is more interesting than I have to ramble about, let's jump right in. So one of the questions I'm really interested in is, it's a very exciting time. We have a lot of change in terms of political decisions going back and forth. We have a lot of political divisiveness. We have commodities markets that are not behaving how they were expected to months and years ago. We have a lot of upheaval and a lot of things that are going on. It's kind of very tumultuous and unknown time. So I'd love to start with you, Sophie, about how do you approach leadership in a time like that? How do you take the reins and make sure everything's okay?
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me, and congratulations again to all the Top 49ers. And what a treat to see everybody and be together with everybody once again. So it's an honor to be here. To your question, what are we doing as a corporation to look beyond what I will call uncertainty in our world right now? Just as we thought we were getting out of uncertainty with the end of COVID, we're faced right back with it again. And so from a CIRI perspective, we always look long-term. And we look at our investments through that lens, through a diversification lens, to help us navigate those twists and turns that are coming at us. We also, we can't do what we do as a corporation and on behalf of our nearly 9,200 shareholders without people. And the people today that face uncertainty are everybody from our accounts payable clerks to those that are on the front lines doing the work in our government services division. So we're really focused on maintaining the social and the well-being of our workforce in this time of great uncertainty. And I would say at a local perspective, we are really working closely with CIRI's socially driven enterprises, which include South Central Foundation, Cook Inlet Housing Authority, Cook Inlet Tribal Council. And those entities really are on the front line of helping Alaska Native people in our community, which number close to 65,000, and helping them to face the uncertainties that are sometimes very unsurmountable to individuals. We're also staying true to our culture, and it's really at the heart of everything we do as Alaska Native people. And so relying upon some of our other entities like the Alaska Native Heritage Center, Kawanak broadcast to help spread the value of Alaska Native culture beyond just Alaska, but to the rest of the lower 48, where so many of the names that you saw up there on the screen today, so many of our shareholders reside even outside the state. So our duty for weathering this uncertainty goes beyond just the boundaries of Alaska.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Joe, can you share with us how Northrim is approaching this particular confluence of fun things?
Sure. So at this certain time, we feel it's very important to, first of all, communicate with our employees, to provide them with a sense of stability, to allow them to provide what we call superior customer first service. So that's founding value for the bank. And in order to do that, you have to have a comfort level within your employees to be able to provide that level of service to the greater community. We pride ourselves on developing long-term relationships with our customers. You can't do that unless you have a workforce that is well-trained, that has good benefits, and that is comfortable in doing what they're doing. So that communication with our employees to allow them to communicate out to the greater community is critical. Mm-hmm. We have donated throughout the entire state since the inception of the bank. We started with about $8 million in capital. We've donated many times that throughout the community. So we feel it's very important to support education. That's why we have a long-term relationship with the University of Alaska throughout all the communities that it serves and that we do business in. So if you start with that, you start with a foundation of good education and communication and develop those long-term relationships, that's the key to adding stability in a time when there's not a lot of stability in many other places in the world. Yeah. So we feel fortunate to do business where we're doing in Alaska, and we're committed to continuing to support our communities throughout the state.
Awesome, awesome, thank you. One thing that you mentioned was your shareholders being really important, and you mentioned relationships several times. Mm-hmm. And I think what's really interesting to me is that Northrim Bank and SERI both have shareholders, but because of the different nature of how your organizations were started, I assume that your relationship with them might be slightly different, but that doesn't change the fact that you have responsibilities to them to communicate and to make sure that you're meeting their expectations. So Joe, can you share with us, how does Northrim communicate with your shareholders? What is that relationship like, and how does it guide you as you make your decisions?
Sure. So we started in 1990 as a public company from the very beginning. And Alaskans from all over the state invested in our bank at a time when many were wondering why a bank was even started at that time. It was in the late 80s, mid to late 80s. There were 13 financial institutions that failed in Alaska. So we kind of rose out of those ashes through the good graces of people that had faith in our organization to invest in it. So public company from the beginning. So on a quarterly basis, we communicate with our shareholders through our earnings releases, through our filings with the SEC. And then just as we have relationships with our employees and our customers, we develop long-term relationships with our shareholders. Yeah. From that very beginning of that capital raise that we had in 1990, went on through several other raises. And in 1999, another large corporation decided to leave the state. That was Bank of America. We purchased their branches through raising additional capital. At that time, there were outside shareholders that invested in us. And so then again, we developed relationships with them over time. Shareholders have different interests, and we work really hard to communicate with them. In fact, like many corporations, we had to change from an in-person annual meeting to a virtual annual meeting, basically overnight. And we did that in the spring of 2020. And that's been very effective. And so we look at different ways to communicate both in person and virtually as we go forward.
Fantastic. And Sophie, can you share about your unique relationship with your shareholders?
Sure. So when SERI was formed 50 years ago, we just like many of our sister organizations just celebrated 50 years of existence. SERI had roughly 6,200 shareholders. Today, after 50 years, that number has grown to 9,200 for us, and that's simply by virtue of our shareholders unfortunately passing away, willing their shares or gifting shares to certain lineal descendants. As you can imagine, being 50 years old in the passage of ANCSA, our youngest original shareholder today is 50 years old. So we're a couple of generations into families today and a couple of generations into how we tailor our communications. And so we have done everything from recently surveying our shareholders and our descendants to ask them, how would you like to hear from us? What should our communications look like for you? Traditionally, we've always sent our shareholders, because we have to by Alaska state law, send them an annual report with their proxy statement every year. And that annual report is it's something that all of you would pick up from a business perspective and look at and read like you would Joe's annual report. You'd learn a lot about the company, but what we found is our shareholders said, that report doesn't resonate with us. It doesn't speak to us. We don't see ourselves in that report. And so this year we really took a concerted effort and redid our annual report to capture our shareholders and our descendants, and they're properly featured in that report along with culture. And furthermore, as part of that survey work, we've again have acknowledged that our monthly newsletter that we produce to our shareholders is one of the best forms of communication. They really enjoy that newsletter. We've had to mix it up a little bit to where we've taken it from a monthly printed product to an every other monthly printed and then an email, simply because of supply chain. Who would have thought that paper would be so difficult to come by these days, but it is. So we've tailored that. We have stepped up our efforts in emails. And for the younger generation, they want social media, and that doesn't necessarily mean Facebook. It means various forms of social media. And of my generation, I like to sit down and I read something. My 22-year-old daughter I've got maybe 5 seconds max to capture her attention. And so we're really having to think differently about how we communicate with them. Sure. Like Joe, we have annual meetings where we invite our shareholders in. I'm so looking forward to this next year will be the first time we'll be back in person with our shareholders. That coming together like we have today to have a meal together, to visit, to socialize, and to have conversations is so greatly important to our shareholders and our descendants. And then you couple that with, we go out every year to do informational meetings at various locations, because our shareholders reside all across the country and all across Alaska. And so we try to meet them where they are. And to the extent that we can't, we virtually invite them in to participate to those meetings. So we do a variety of ways of communicating with them, but I can tell you, just like today, there's nothing better than in person. Unfortunately, with 9,200 shareholders, that becomes very hard to do, but we're up for the challenge.
That's fantastic. You both mentioned, and everyone in the room would be familiar with this unfortunate reality, that during COVID, lots of things had to change, sometimes very quickly and unexpectedly. As companies made adjustments and found new ways to kind of deal with what was happening, if there's a silver lining to a global pandemic, it's that a lot of those adjustments have had some value and have helped with bottom lines and other things like that. So Joe, can you share with us things that happened during the pandemic that Northrim did that actually have been a positive change that Northrim is carrying forward?
Sure. So first of all, prior to and during the pandemic, the bank made substantial investments in our technology, both the humans that deal with the technology and our technology infrastructure. So that allowed us to continue to produce at high levels during the pandemic so that we could help our customers. Through our technology, we were able to work many times virtually with our customers. We were never more productive, and a good portion of our employees were off-site in this process, both at the bank and at Residential Mortgage, our wholly owned mortgage subsidiary. So that was a key to us, for us, to be able to deliver our service at a high level. At times, we had to close some of our facilities, as did many businesses throughout the state. But we always made an effort to stay open through a drive-through or on a limited basis through our branches. Yet, we were still able to remain connected both with employees. We invested in a voice over IP phone system, for example. So we had all these face-to-face communications going on with people throughout the state and throughout the greater United States, so that again, we could continue to focus on our customers throughout this time. I think that had mentioned earlier that we were the state's largest provider of Paycheck Protection Program loans, PPP loans. Well, we were able to do that because we had invested in that technological infrastructure to be able to deliver those services out to our employees. So that was a big part of it.
Sure.
And then staying flexible with our employees and flexible with our customers. We made a real effort to reach out to them, to work with them, because countless individuals and businesses had all kinds of financial issues they were dealing with along as a result of the COVID, and in many cases compounded by it. So we had to be flexible with them. Change the terms of their notes that they had with us, open up new accounts. All this business was done basically virtually for about a 2-year time period. Never been more productive, and as a result, we're more flexible with our employees coming out of it. So right now, about half of our workforce works on-site, about 40% or so works on a hybrid basis, and 10% or so are permanently remote, both within the state and throughout the United States. And that's probably going to stay close to that. We're encouraging more and more people to come in because, as Sophie mentioned, we like being in person. I mean, we like dealing with people on a personal basis. But there's many people, for a whole variety of reasons, their life changed pretty dramatically in that 2-year time period, and we changed with it.
Right.
And we're committed to doing that so we can continue to serve the needs of our customers.
Fantastic. And Sophie, what positive changes has Siri seen as for what they were?
Well, I would echo much of what Joe has said. I mean, to weather the storm, my heart and my hat goes off to our IT team. What we were able to accomplish through COVID was really the result of their hard work and their foreshadowing and their planning in what was already a very dynamic and uncertain and had a lot of threats to it environment. Siri was able to pivot very quickly to a remote work from home situation, and that was everybody, from myself clear on down to the frontline individuals that work with our shareholders. And the reason being, as much of what Joe said, we made those investments up front. Thankfully, we tested them up front, and we were able to move forward seamlessly. I would also add that part of what made our organization so successful in navigating that storm was constant communication. Sure. I went from having quarterly staff meetings to literally drafting and writing and sending an email to our team on a weekly basis. Because if you all recall, you think back where we were, it was, we're only going to go home for a little while. And then it was like, it was 2 weeks, right? And then 2 weeks turned into 3 months, and 3 months turned into 2 years. So that constant communication and reassurance that as a company we were prepared to weather this helped out tremendously. To that extent, going back to my earlier comments about our socially driven enterprises, throughout this whole storm, there was an incident or an event called the CARES Act. And the CARES Act came up, and the CARES Act resulted, there was a little bit of litigation that happened around it, but the outcome was that Siri and many of the organizations in this room received CARES Act funds. And those funds were meant to help those weather the storm and weather the outcomes that the pandemic created. And we had to then turn to rely upon our socially driven enterprises to help deploy those funds. As an organization, we received those funds in September of that year, and we had to deploy them by December 31st. We were at an extreme disadvantage to our lower 48 counterparts. And one of our values is to be excellent in all we do, and we had to expend those funds by the letter of the law. And so we really leaned into our socially driven enterprises. We used them, and we were able to expend $112 million into this community, into the state, and into our shareholders, their descendants, and their dependents to help them get through that storm. And so, all of that was really brought about, to circle it all back up, was because we had the technology at our fingertips that allowed us to do that, and we'll continue that technology going forward. We've remained flexible with our workforce, and ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you, if you're not, you need to be, because employees are hard to find, and they're just as hard to hang on to. And so that flexibility and having a work schedule that allows them to really feel they're valued in an organization has helped us tremendously as well.
It's helped the magazine. This is actually the first day I came into the office in 2 years, so.
Well, welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm joking. But no, we're a small business, but that flexibility, really, it doesn't matter what size business you are. If you can have that flexibility with your employees, it's obviously a huge asset to them. So I did have one more question, and this might be harder to source out one or two answers. What are you happy to say goodbye to? Like, COVID was so nice, we're glad to show you the door. From a company perspective, what's the thing that you'll be happiest to kind of look back and hope that never happens again?
You want me to go first?
Please do, Sophie.
I think I speak for everybody in this room, but getting rid of all those face masks. In all seriousness, I'm really ready to say goodbye to not being able to have our shareholders come into our offices and for us to see them. I'm really not looking forward in some respects to the first time we have face-to-face with our shareholders, because sadly I think there's going to be some many faces that won't be in the room that we're accustomed to seeing over the last few years. So I'm really ready to get rid of and that closure if that was there. I'm ready to get rid of virtual board meetings. I think it's really hard. Your day job, you work all day. You're used to virtual board meetings, but sometimes you have directors that, you see them quarterly. They don't know the technology. It's difficult. It's clunky. During difficult conversations, all you're seeing is this. People pick up things, unfortunately, in body language or facial cues, and they may have incorrect perceptions about that. You don't know that their kid is screaming and crying in the background and their face is contorted. But so I'm ready to get rid of virtual board meetings, and definitely ready to have people back in our space.
How about you, Joe?
I would say a lot the same.
Yeah.
We went to virtual board meetings just like you.
Of course.
And we just started with in-person board meetings here in August.
Awesome.
And so appreciate the ability to connect with one another after doing that for basically over 2 years with our directors throughout the state. So that's one example.
Yeah.
We were just up in Fairbanks this last week. We had a number of community events, and we actually had our board meeting in person at UAF up there. Totally enjoyed that experience of connecting with the community. Like I said in some of my opening remarks, we value long-term relationships with our employees and certainly with our customers. So the ability to step out and connect with them in person is really nice. We're committed to providing them services however they want to receive them, whether that's in person or via our electronic banking services, which we greatly expanded during the COVID, and we continue to invest in that area because we recognize that people want to receive those services in different ways.
Right.
But when it gets down to it, for our business, for your business, for so many of the other businesses out there, it's a people business. And that ability to connect with people, form those relationships, bond, and go forward on a joint basis is critical. And I believe firmly that that happens more effectively in person than virtually. As we've done, I mean, I think Alaska has done a very good job staying connected during this process. Who would have believed that we would go through over 2 years of working largely remotely? But I'm really glad to say goodbye to that.
Oh, for sure. Funny, we actually hired some people over COVID, and today is the first day that we have all been together since we hired several of our employees more than a year ago.
Yep.
So it's a great moment. It's good to see all of you. As we've said a million times, it's just nice to see friendly faces. So switching topics a lot, one of the things that I have loved working at the magazine has been reading about the oil and gas industry. I love the commodity of oil. I love Alaska's relationship with oil, even though I think it's troubled. And so I love the conversation going on right now about a global conversation about our energy future, which is happening because of so many reasons. Renewables, the conflict with Russia and Ukraine, so many reasons. Both of your organizations have some connection to energy, either through financing projects or working through those kinds of things. And I'd love to have perspective from both of you on the future of Alaska's energy landscape and what you're looking forward to. So if we could start with you, Joe, on what Northrim's looking forward to for Alaska's energy future and the developments that you see coming.
So we've been active supporting the oil industry in particular since the inception of the bank.
Sure.
About 6% of our loan book is associated with providing financing to oil field service companies. I believe that Alaska has a bright future when you go forward. I honestly do. You know, our pipeline's operating at about a quarter of its total capacity right now at about 500,000 barrels per day. There's on the books projects that could add almost half of that capacity to the pipeline going forward. Pikka and Willow being the two largest of those. I'm cautiously optimistic that both of those will go forward, and we look forward to supporting those. But also recognize that the world's evolving,
Yes.
and we have many other alternative sources of energy being developed. I believe that Alaska holds the resources to be productive and to provide support for the transition into other alternative sources of energy. I also believe that it's fundamentally important that we have a long-term, sustainable fiscal plan so that companies can feel comfortable investing in our state, something that the bank has advocated for since the inception of the bank. In addition, we need stable policies with regards to taxation of our resource development companies. Also something that the bank's advocated for a very, very long time. You need to have consistent policies to provide an environment that these companies can invest in for the long term, because these are very, very long-term projects. Alaska's major source of revenue comes from these industries.
Yes.
We need to support them for the long-term future, but also recognize that the future is changing, and we need to participate in that going forward. And we have the ability to do that with the great natural resources that we have.
Absolutely. And Sophie, can you talk a little bit about Ceres and development in energy and what you see for Alaska's future?
Sure. Well, I would first off echo much of what Joe has said. Specific to Ceres, we have always been and will continue to be a supporter and a promoter of responsible resource development in this state. Ceres has land holdings that we have active oil and gas leases on today, and we're proud of those partnerships and the work that that creates for our state. We also recognize, like Joe has said, that you know, the world is changing, but that world is not going to change overnight. If you look at world energy consumption, those demands are going to continue to go up at such a clip that there's no way that that transition is going to happen fast enough from a clean energy perspective. So SERI has continued and will continue to have a balanced approach on this. We've invested in clean energy. You know, Fire Island Wind, which is 3 miles offshore of Anchorage, just celebrated its 10 years of existence, and in that 10 years' time has displaced over 500 million cubic feet of gas and has powered over 7,000 homes in our community. We look forward to an opportunity to continue to expand that project and have it create more renewable resources. We're looking at our land holdings across Alaska for, you know, further opportunities. But our responsibility in that area doesn't just end in Alaska. SERI has invested in wind farms in Palouse, Washington. We've historically held wind assets in Texas, Nebraska, and Wyoming as well. We have invested in a brand new gas-powered electrical plant in Middletown, Ohio. And recently, we made a large investment in an entity that creates bio wood pellets that is sold into the European energy market and is considered clean energy for that market. So our investments are going to continue to be in the energy space, and we're really thankful for the attention that the administration of our state is starting to put on energy and its importance into, you know, the current and future economic viability of all Alaska, not just the rail belt, but of all Alaska. And so we're going to continue to monitor that and continue to be a player in it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So we have 5 minutes left. So for our last question today, as we've mentioned several times, we changed our criteria this year for the top 49ers. And we thought a lot about that. And the real reason that we did that was to make sure that we could include the companies that are focused on Alaska and to build criteria that we thought really demonstrated that focus appropriately. And obviously Northrim and SERI are both Alaska companies. Your focus is on the state, obviously with an eye on everything else because that's responsible, but really focused on a state. And so I'd love to hear from you first, Sophie, both what it is that you love most about working in and for Alaska, and if there's something that you would change about operating in Alaska that would be beneficial for your company or your shareholders.
Well, I think to answer that question, I have to think back about the company I work for and why it's here. Right. It was created out of the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act. Alaska is the core, and the land of Alaska is why we're here. And it is the thread that runs through every Alaska Native corporation that you saw on the list today in our village corporations. It's and the people that we represent are Alaska Native people. And so when I think about the importance of the work that SERI does and working in Alaska, it's really driven by the people in the land. And those are very near and dear to our corporation and the heartbeat of our corporation, and will hopefully be for time immortal. And that, yes, our shareholders are now dispersed all across the United States. We have even shareholders in foreign countries today. But predominantly after 50 years, the majority of our shareholders still reside here in Alaska. Mm-hmm. They rely upon us to be here for them, and they rely upon us to be good stewards of the land. And so, if I could change one thing about Alaska and doing business in Alaska, I think it goes back to what Joe said, and that is to have a stable policy and environment in our state, and to really stop the efforts of invoking policy by way of initiative, and that doing away with that could help to levelize and stop some unfortunate and unnecessary distractions as we all try to do the best thing we can for our state, for our economy, and for the people that live here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Joe, your thoughts, please.
First of all, totally agree with that. So one of our central core values is that we're proud to be Alaskan.
Yes.
And what I love about doing businesses in Alaska is the spirit of Alaskans. And you sense that in each and every community that we visit. It makes Alaska a special place to do business. It's those long-term bonds that we share together. It's not easy to do business in Alaska, nor to live here, quite frankly, at times.
Right.
But I believe that that binds people together in that process and allows us to overcome those obstacles and achieve great things. So I think that there's a bright future ahead for Alaska. That's what I love about Alaska too, is really the prospects of the future. Because we're blessed with great natural resources, great geography.
Yeah.
Nowhere in the world can you be closer to any other parts of the world than right here.
All right.
And that's a tremendous benefit to Alaska. So I think we have a bright future going forward. What would I change?
Sure.
As far as that, it would be similar to what Sophie said. It would be, hopefully, that we can focus more on the long-term sustainability of our state and not focus so much on the day-to-day and certainly the year-to-year. And that we can, in that way, have a more stable environment for people to live, invest in, and prosper in our state. I think that's critical for the long-term viability of the state, that we have a long-term sustainable fiscal plan for our state that really welcomes in business, supports that, so that we can keep investing in our state, attracting talent to our state, and retaining the talent that we have in our state. Critical for us as we go forward. And I believe many, many businesses face those challenges. So if we have that environment in place, that'll make it easier for us to prosper going forward.
Okay, fantastic. Please help me thank them for their time today.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks.
Thank you. And don't forget to grab your passports and enjoy ice cream, get your photos. You're officially released. And thank you everyone so much for being here today. It was a pleasure to see you. Have a great afternoon.